can't have a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. We won't survive it. You don't defeat Democrat chaos with Republican chaos. Bring it, Donald. Show me what you got.
That was Nikki Haley daring Donald Trump to go after her. It's like waving a red sheet in front of a bull. Trump now going full scorched earth on Haley and her supporters. He posted on social media yesterday, quote, anybody that makes a contribution, in quotes, we're not sure why, to Bird Brain, his name for Nikki Haley, from the moment forth will be permanently banned from the MAGA camp. We don't want them and will not accept them because we put America first and always will.
This comes after CNN reported that Trump was, quote, seething when Haley did not drop out of the race after Trump won New Hampshire. With us now, former Trump White House communications director and now Trump critic, Anthony Scaramucci. Appreciate it. Morning.
Trump realist. I don't really see myself as a Trump critic.
Okay, fair.
Just a Trump realist.
Okay,
but
fair.
Good morning, guys.
Give us your real take on Nikki Haley. I just wonder if she can taunt Trump effectively in a way that hurts him.
Oh, she's hurting him. I mean, you know, you have to look at the case that she's making against him, and then you have to look at the exit polling on the voters that are saying they're not going to cross over to Donald Trump. And so she is hurting him. He knows she's hurting him. And if you look at the results in New Hampshire, if you're on his campaign, you can pretend that they were great, but they're really not that great. He got 50-ish% of the vote, which means that 50% of the Republicans really don't want him. And then when you do the exit polling, it was 43 in, I think, Iowa. 70+% of the Haley voters in New Hampshire said, we're not voting for Donald Trump in the election. Now, you know, that killed Hillary Clinton with the Bernie Sanders voters in 2016.
Yeah.
And, of course, Barack Obama got 75% of the Hillary Clinton voters in 2008. So this is really hurting Donald Trump. He knows that, which is why he's so frustrated and why he's launching all these threats and the invective.
The irony of New Hampshire is it almost for sure locked up the eventual nomination for Donald Trump, or made that very clear. And yet it also proved that Haley's theory of the case for this race is largely accurate on the donor side of things. You know, Haley can run as long as she has money. And she's had it, and people like her. People up here on Wall Street like her. What are you hearing when you talk to Republican donors, big money guys who are watching this race right now?
Well, I think they're nonchalant to Donald Trump's threat about not being with his campaign. I don't think they really care. You know, guys like Tim Draper, venture capitalist, billionaire, does not care. The Koch family, trust me, they do not care. And I think Governor Haley's doing a lot of really smart things. She's setting herself up for 2028. She's making the case that this is a failed candidate. This is probably the only candidate that the Republicans could put up that would lose to President Biden based on the polling. And I would submit to everybody listening, who is going to vote for Trump this time in 2024 that didn't vote for him in 2020? Has he really expanded his popularity? And I would submit that he hasn't. And those exit polls show you that he hasn't. And of course, if you get a rock slide on the legal proceedings, he's really in a lot of trouble. He knows that. He's not stupid. You know, he knows he lost the election. He knows he's under the gun here as it relates to this campaign. He knows that the mosaic of the country, this beautiful, colorful mosaic of the United States, has changed from 2016 into 2020 and now 2024. So it's a totally different country from a demographic perspective, and he's going to lose. Now, he'll win the nomination, but I think it will set up the Republican Party for a renewal in 2028.
The political arm of the Koch network, Americans for Prosperity, in their statement after New Hampshire, Nikki Haley said this is still an uphill battle. Now all eyes turn to South Carolina, where she has a steeper road ahead. But they're staying there with the money. I wonder how much money you think. I was with some liberals-ish, or were, this week, that said they are fundraising for Nikki Haley. I mean, how much of that kind of money can come to her now that would sustain? I would just wonder if you're hearing similar things.
Well, no, what I'm hearing from Wall Street people is that they're quietly giving to Nikki Haley. They're trying to stay out of it so they don't end up on Donald Trump's radar screen. And I think she'll get those donors as well. She'll make a calculation how long to stay in the race. I think it would be very hard for her to leave the race prior to South Carolina because she was the governor there she was popular there, and she may want to make a last political stand in 24 in South Carolina. But let's say she surprises in South Carolina. Remember, Newt Gingrich surprised everybody in 2012 in South Carolina. Then it becomes a real race coming into Super Tuesday. But the money's there for Nikki Haley, and the money's there because people really know the danger of Donald Trump. They know that he's a threat to the institutions of the American democracy. Most of that money is from patriots. They're taking a position that they're patriots first and partisans second. And they don't want Donald Trump. And by the way, if you look at the people that have worked for Donald Trump, if they're not politically motivated, they've been extremely honest about his behavior and his lack of executive capabilities and the dishonesty of his presidency.
There's no precedent for what we've seen from folks who used to work for him. Wall Street guys also, though, make money because they're good at business. Some of them, most of them. At what point do they start?
A lot easier than politics, Phil. Let me just tell you. I mean,
I think, you probably have some experience in understanding that. When do they decide, all right, I need to put money on Trump because I have business interests that are going to be in front of the U.S. government. I got to, hedge my bets here to some degree.
I don't see it. I think people are like, I got to stay out of Trump's field of vision because he runs everybody over. The money that I give him is not necessarily going to help me with him. There's asymmetric loyalty when it comes to Trump. They threw that kid out of the party. I don't know if you saw that the other night, that the kid was there taking pictures with one of Trump's lawyers who said that she was sick, but she really wasn't sick, and they tossed him, and he's out there on Twitter saying, okay, this is how Trump people get treated by Donald Trump. I mean, they're just objects in his field of vision. And so what's interesting is that he will always find people, though, to join his movement. And he's got Tim Scott behind him or Vivek Ramaswamy behind him. And they see a legion of people that have been wrecked by Donald Trump, but they don't care. And that's the blindness of the political ambition involved.
Businessman Doug Burgum, also governor, who said a couple weeks ago he wouldn't do business with Trump, was behind him that night, too.
Well, look, they want to work in his cabinet. They see him as a potential victor, and they want to work in his cabinet. I got that. I've been there, guys. I've been there.
How many days?
Well, I was there for 11, but I did work for Donald Trump for 8 months on the campaign. It was a fun experience. I wouldn't replace it, and it was very humbling. But there's a big message in what happened to me. It's going to happen to you, so just be ready for it.
There are
this is not the right guy to be president.
Anthony Scaramucci, always appreciate your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.